Everybody loves 2000 Spider-Man the game. Who can forget swinging straight from the sky above misty New York? But did you know it had 3 completely different sequels, all released in 2001? There was Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro for the PlayStation 1, Spider-Man 2 The Sinister Six for the Game Boy Color, and Spider-Man Mysterio's Menace for the Game Boy Advance. And in this video, we're going to compare each of them. Let's begin with Enter Electro. Now, the developers had less than a year to make this PlayStation 1 sequel, so it very much borrows and repurposes a lot of the elements from the first game. You do get this neat recap of the original at the start, and fun fact, it's actually using the cutscenes from the Dreamcast version. The story starts with Emperor Palpatine robbing a research facility. Oh wait, no, that's Electro. And just like the original, we've got Stan Lee back with some top-tier voiceovers.
Now it appears that trouble has found our arachnid hero yet again. So get ready for a pulse-pounding, web-slinging tale of shocking revelations.
Just like the original, the game starts with a tutorial section set across the New York skyline, only this time it's set during the evening, and instead of Black Cat giving you tips, we've got Beast from the X-Men.
Greetings, my web-slinging compatriot.
Hank, why are you thrusting rhythmically like that? The combat is pretty much the same as the first game, basic but satisfying, same with the webbing abilities. You know, maybe if you weren't holding a giant gun in both hands, you could put up more of a fight, generic goon. Unfortunately, there's still no dynamic camera of any kind.
Splendid thus far. You're almost there, Spider-Man.
Seriously, Hank, you dropped out of the sky just to say that? The biggest difference between the first game and Enter Electro is the addition of ground levels. You see, 2000 Spider-Man wasn't an open world game, but it did have a few levels where you could swing across the New York rooftops. The catch was that you couldn't drop down to street level, supposedly because the city was covered in a mysterious green gas. Enter Electro changes that by introducing levels where you can both swing across rooftops and also descend down to the streets below. Sure, the streets are completely empty, but hey, it's a PlayStation 1 game. Fellas, if you're gonna jump a car, you're gonna need to stop standing around spitting and actually do something. Ah, damn it, the car's on fire. It's okay, I can put it out with my webs. Oh no, they blew up the Cappuccino Espresso store.
You're dead, do-gooder!
Fun fact, this level actually has a ball on one of the rooftops, and on the street right underneath is a hoop where you can actually play basketball. Ah, damn it, this is too hard. Let me try using the trash can. This is followed by a classic rooftop swinging level where you go over the bridge and then take on a bunch of goons with mounted Gatling guns. Peter, try to remember the basics of CQC. I love how they just decided to do a close-up of this super low-res goon in the pre-rendered cutscene. After exploring the warehouse, we get the game's first boss battle against Shocker. It's a pretty simple boss fight. You do have this time limit though, so you've got to beat him before the fire reaches the barrels. The next day, Peter is casually swinging through the city when he gets hit by a rocket. Better take out all these mercenaries before they damage the precious Activision billboard. This level has this big bomb which you can only deactivate using the keys held by the bad guys. Spidey then gets into the hangar where he has to stop a plane.
I've got to clear these barrels out of the way.
Next up is another level on the rooftops, this time chasing a tracer before it gets too far away, and then this level set inside a mysterious facility.
Well, I don't want to alert the whole place, so I better play this one quiet and sneaky.
Yeah, Pete, you should have told me that before I started punching all of them. The goal here is to activate all the power generators in the right order.
Can't miss that train.
And yet you proceed to just stand there looking at it for 10 seconds. Well, this boss battle is full on. Look, we've got the train meter at the bottom, Sandman and his health bar, plus the Wall of Sand's health bar as well. Thank God I can still swing from the sky. Turns out Electro, Sandman, and their team of generic goons are looking to cause trouble with this gadget that they stole. And they've hired Hammerhead, and fun fact, this scene is actually a tribute to this famous scene from The Untouchables.
But I get nowhere unless the team takes out Spider-Man. Spider-Man!
So Spider-Man takes on a bunch of 30s gangster stereotypes with Tommy guns, rescues some hostages, and then takes on Hammerhead. Eat plant, bad guy. Now, enter Electro has often been criticized for feeling a bit empty when compared to the original, and I can definitely see that. The levels introduce new mechanics, but they feel a lot tamer when compared to something like the over-the-top helicopter chase from the original game. And because the original game used up most of the A-tier villains, Enter Electro has to rely on some of the lesser-known bad guys. But I do appreciate that this game had a lot more levels set outside when compared to the original, which just relied on sewers and dark corridors. Speaking of which, the next 3 levels in the sequel take place in a research facility filled with dark corridors. The first level has you try to get past a bunch of lasers and do these mini games. This is followed by a super annoying level where you've got to get around the force fields by swinging through this chasm while being electrocuted.
Wonderful.
And then we get another level where you have to make your way up, squeezing through all the different obstacles. This whole sequence ends with a boss battle against the Lizard.
Oh yeah! Yeah, those walls are just as hard as I thought.
Now, Spidey's regular webs aren't gonna work on Dr. Connors, so you've got to do these mini games to make an antidote vat and then use them to stun him. We then get one more level of you swinging around before going into another boss battle with the Sandman. Now, taking him head on isn't gonna work. Instead, you've got to turn up the water pressure and then release it through one of these pipes. And I really do think that the boss battles are the strongest point of this game. The developers went out of their way to give each one a little quirk or an interesting mechanic. We then move on to the museum where Electro shocks these ancient Japanese exhibits and makes them come alive. Sure, why not? The goal here is to take out the power source in the center of the museum. You do this by beating up the samurai and then throwing them at the generator. This is followed by a level where Peter has to ascend up the wall, avoiding being hit by lightning. And I've always loved how this level was presented as an archaeological dig. So the further up you went, the closer you got to present day. Who else remembers that feeling of sheer relief when you finally get to modern day only to fall all the way back down? Now, the final boss battle against Electro is divided into 2 parts. First, you take him on at the planetarium with him on top of the moon lander using everything in the room against you. Your best bet here is just to take a good swing at him whilst battling the awkward camera. I also like how the final level's loading screen has Spider-Man in a battle damaged suit. Now, the second part of the boss fight is against the supercharged Electro. The fight itself is pretty standard. You have to disable all of these capacitors and then time Electro's lightning attack so he short circuits himself and then attack. And I will say, all the lightning visuals are pretty impressive for a PlayStation 1 game. But the most notable thing about this boss battle is the location. It's set on top of 2 skyscrapers with a tall spire sticking out of the North Tower. And if those look familiar, it's because the boss fight was originally meant to take place atop the World Trade Center. You see, Enter Electro was originally supposed to be released on September the 18th, 2001. And following the attacks on the Twin Towers, Activision delayed the game by a month. They changed the textures of the towers and connected them via a bridge. However, years later, an August 2001 prototype of the game leaked online with the original version of the final stage. And so that's it for the campaign. We see Peter swing into the sunset whilst the supervillains play cards behind bars right next to the villains from the original game.
Hey! You guys know how to play Go Fish?
Just like the first game, Enter Electro also has a bunch of bonus content like the gallery view.
The henchmen live only to serve out the will of their master.
We also get the comic cover collection, the storyboards, and Parker's portfolio. All the suits from the original return with a few new additions. The game also has a training mode which is set in the X-Men Danger Room.
Follow my instructions and make your attempt.
That sounds easy enough. You gonna do that talking in my head thing?
I intend to do just that, Spider-Man.
And finally, there's also a What If mode which places bananas all over the place.
Please make sure your seats and tray tables are in their full and upright positions.
Okay, that's it for the PlayStation 1 game. Now let's move on to Spider-Man 2, the Sinister Six for the Game Boy Color. And this game was actually released in May of 2001. It starts with this amazing pixel art of Doc Ock plotting against Spider-Man accompanied by a kick-ass chiptune theme. The story begins with a cozy night at the Parker residence. Ah, how quaint and peaceful. The Sandman! And the Scorpions shoving Aunt May into a sack! Oh no, they're taking her to an amusement park! Okay, so what do we have here? Some furries? Are they friendly? No, they're not. Well, at least this guy looks harmless. Nope, he's got a gun. Oh my god, the clown's trying to kill me. Now, gameplay-wise, this is a pretty standard Spider-Man platformer. You go through the levels, beating up bad guys, flipping switches, and web swinging. I mean, there's not much else you can do. The Game Boy Color only has 4 buttons and a D-pad. The swinging does feel pretty decent though, and you will get power-ups like the Iron Spider suit. Every level ends with a simple boss battle against one of the Sinister Six, with the first one being Mysterio. Now, this is a really short game. There are only 6 levels. We've got the fairground, followed by the pier, which is filled with angry sailors and Britney Spears backup dancers. I do like the little detail of the bird and the bug in the background. There's also this random lady who sticks her head out of the window and tries to hit Spidey with her pearl necklace. And I'm sorry, who's this supposed to be, a hooded dominatrix? This level ends with a boss battle against the Sandman, and look at the random people arguing on the ship in the background. Now, this is actually followed by a level set inside the World Trade Center. Remember, this game was released in spring of 2001, and the section ends with a boss battle against the Vulture. The next level takes place in Madison Square Garden and ends with you taking on the Scorpion courtside. Sure, why not? We then get a level in Central Park at night, which is filled with bad guys in red overalls. You also go through the zoo where the tigers are in the same cage as the monkeys. Also, who's the end level boss here? Is it the pigeon lady from Home Alone 2? Close enough, it's actually Kraven the Hunter. The boss battles in this game all follow a very similar roadmap. Avoid the boss's attacks and then find an opening without taking damage. Again, it is a Game Boy Color game. The final level takes place at the university where disgruntled professors have climbed the rooftop and are chucking beakers at poor Peter. Naturally, the final boss fight is against Doc Ock, and once you defeat him, you see this still where it looks like Peter has caught the good doctor having an affair with Aunt May, and they both look really ashamed of themselves. You won! Okay, and finally, let's take a look at Spider-Man Mysterio's Menace for the Game Boy Advance. And this game was actually released on September 18th, 2001, the original release date for Enter Electro. This game also has a different standalone plot, which sees Peter try to apprehend 4 different groups of villains in one night. Gameplay-wise, it's really similar to the Sinister Six game, with you swinging, fighting, and crawling through a bunch of platforming levels. Naturally, the graphics have received an upgrade, and the characters are now made up of pre-rendered 3D models. Plus, the goons in this game look super hench. One thing I will say about the visuals, they can be a bit headache-inducing. The environments and especially the backgrounds are just so cluttered. You can tell this was a really early GBA game and they were still trying to work out what would look best on the console. Spider-Man is a lot easier to control in this one, and he moves a lot faster than he did on the Game Boy Color. This game also lets you choose which of the 3 starting levels you want to do first, which is a nice touch. These opening levels include the docks, which also feature a casino yacht, the metal foundry, which is filled with ninjas for some reason, and the downtown overrun by 30s gangsters. And each level ends with a boss battle against a supervillain. Wait, who the hell is this supposed to be? Big Wheel? Is this a joke? No, sure enough, this is a real Spider-Man villain. Anyway, beating each of the first 3 levels will open up a path to the next one. You get the museum, which has Spidey get ambushed by like 30 ninjas, the nightclub where you rescue hostages, well, come on, you're free. And the chemical corporation where poor Peter keeps taking freeze sprays right to the face. This game also has a bunch of power-ups and suits with special powers nestled deep inside the levels. In a neat reversal to the Game Boy Color game, this one actually ends at an amusement park complete with its own gang of violent clowns. This level is super long and quite difficult to navigate as it's filled with spooky skeletons and plenty of spikes. But if you search around this level enough, you will find the symbiote suit, which is by far the best suit of the game. Eventually, you will take on Mysterio himself. And I've got to say, this boss fight is full on. Mysterio has a bunch of different techniques, from fireballs to turning into other bosses to creating doubles of himself and just straight up growing huge. But eventually you do defeat him, and Peter gets to use his helmet as a bowl for MJ's goldfish. And so there we have it, all 3 versions of 2001 Spider-Man 2, the game. And I think it's fascinating how Activision just let its developers make 3 completely different games. Enter Electro is the one most of us grew up with. It definitely doesn't climb the same height as its predecessor. The levels are a bit emptier and the B-tier villains do make it feel like more of a side story, but at least it didn't rehash the same characters, and the boss fights are genuinely more interesting than in the original. As for the Sinister Six, it's actually a pretty good Game Boy platformer with great pixel art and soundtrack. Its story is simple, but it allows you to take on Spidey's most iconic villains. Meanwhile, the Game Boy Advance game had an interesting level structure and set the groundwork for future Spider-Man games on the GBA. But that's just my take. Please let me know your memories of 2001 Spider-Man 2. Which is your favorite game, favorite level, and seriously, who the hell is Big Wheel? As always, thanks for watching. Please consider supporting me on Patreon, and a big thanks to my existing patrons. If you've enjoyed this video, then please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.